Welcome back to the Skids Giggles Podcast. I am Pascal, chief instigator of the show and your host. I'm joined by my co-host and resident engineer, the shake to my bake, Bryson. Bryson, how's it going today?
Spectacular, Pascal. And you?
I'm good, man. Thanks. I'm very excited today to welcome our first female guest to the Skids and Giggles podcast. And both Bryson and I, we made it our personal goal to have an appropriate balance of guests on the show. We've talked about getting more women involved in the sport before, so the least we can do is also have them on. So, Lucy, how are you today?
Hello, guys. It's nice to be on, and I'm very excited for this show.
Cool. Thank you, Lucy, for doing this. I think we also want to clarify that with all of our guests, we give them the opportunity to say, in which language they would like to do it. And we're obviously super happy that you said you wanted to do it in English. So our dear friend Bryson here can be part of the conversation. So thank you very much.
And welcome.
No problem.
Well, we'll just briefly mention our social and where you can find more information about the Skids and Giggles podcast. We are currently most active on Instagram, where you can slide into our DMs and follow along at Skids and Giggles. And you can find our website with all the relevant links and info under skidsandgiggles.com. I think we have a lot of material to cover today, so I think we just jump right into the main conversation today. Skip the listener questions, so to speak. Lucy, maybe to start with, how about we talk a little bit about how you actually got into mountain biking?
Of course, I'd love to do that. So it's always hard to really find the starting point, but I would say it's probably about 10 years ago where I bought my very first mountain bike, which was by far the most expensive things I owned until then, because I was a student, so not that easy and very cost sensitive, I would say. And it was a Santa Cruz Blur, a test bike, so it wasn't that expensive. And yeah, that was a lot of fun.
What got you really excited about it?
Well, back then I lived in Kur, which is a kind of a mountainous city and the best place to start mountain biking, I would say, because you have really easy trails and more difficult trails. And so I had a friend, she was biking and she kind of got me into it. And before I got this mountain bike, I had my hardtail and I tried to follow her on my hardtail, and somehow I got caught up in this and just fell in love with mountain biking. And so that's the story, I guess.
Do you still ride with this individual?
Unfortunately, not that much, but we actually just will have a biking date really soon in spring, I hope.
Excellent. That's good to hear.
All right, but then, the riding in Kur kind of stopped at some stage, and you moved to the big city, to Zurich, downtown Switzerland, so to speak, as they like to call it. And how have things changed since then?
Well, to be honest, my mountain bike family grew a little bit. So I now not only own one mountain bike, I own, at least 3. So I have a downhill bike, I have a dirt jumper, and I have an enduro bike. And of course, my city bike. So yes, I have a big cellar with lots of bikes.
Tell me about the downhill bike.
Well, I'm kind of in love with my downhill bike as well, because it's just so much fun to go down really fast and just explore the downhill trails around Switzerland, because we have really nice trails. And so whoops, something happened, I guess.
And the enduro bike, I've seen you ride it the most, actually.
Yes, that's probably the one I ride the most, especially because in Zurich you have the Uetliberg, as you all have heard from James. That's my mountain where I ride pretty much every week. And also now in winter, it's really nice and rideable, even with snow. Sometimes you have snowboarders in front of you, but it's still rideable. It's kind of more of an adventure in wintertime, but yeah, it's fun. And I'm really excited to have my new enduro bike. In October, I got my Transition Sentinel, and now I'm even faster and
engineered to
very
party.
excited.
Yeah,
Oh
giddy
yes,
up,
very
giddy
much. Yes.
Very nice.
So it doesn't sound like you spend or you leave much time for your dirt jumper. Shame on you.
Yes, that's right. So there is something to improve, and that's really spend more time on my dirt jumper. So yeah, maybe I will get there this spring. We'll see.
Exactly. Well, if this Corona situation is not improving massively, we won't be going anywhere anyway. So might as well get down to the pump track.
Exactly, and build our own pump tracks maybe.
And for all you listeners out there, we don't discriminate against city bikes. So please tell us about your city bike.
That's actually not an uncool city bike either, because it was my first mountain bike, my Gary Fisher Marlin from 2007, I think.
It's a beautiful frame.
Something around
Classic.
that. Yes. So it's a classic, and now it just kind of works very well as a city bike and very, very well as a bike to go to the main station and back. And so it's perfect.
Okay. Well, the main thing I'm really excited to have you on is to talk a little bit about your work, what you do. Of course, mountain biking is part of your personal life, but it's also part of your professional life. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about, the work that you've done over the last couple of years.
Yes, of course. So let's start where it started. I think it started in Cour. There I did a bachelor, and for my bachelor thesis I actually wrote how to motivate kids to use the pump track there, because in Cour you have one of the first pump tracks in Switzerland, and so my goal was to really get kids excited to use it. And later on, I didn't tell you this before. I also founded a mountain bike company in between something. Yeah, it wasn't that successful, but it's okay. And
you live and you learn.
In the end, exactly, that's all it is. And now I work in a health promotion program, which encourages kids and teenagers to lead a healthier life. And there we also promote mountain biking and biking as well.
Okay, well, obviously now I need to jump in because, getting kids excited about riding a pump track, I think it's pretty much the easiest thing to do. So I imagine your bachelor thesis was super casual to do, and you were done in no time and spent most of the time riding.
I wish. Yeah, the bad thing about a bachelor thesis is usually that you have to have a lot of backup and data and statistics as well. So that's the kind of boring part, or the part that you need to do as well. But actually it was more also to get teachers excited to use it, because teachers usually are kind of scared to use pump tracks and don't really know how to use them. And if you're not a mountain biker yourself, so why should you go with all your kids at school to a pump track? So this was actually the challenge we had to conquer.
Okay. But again, coming back to my personal experience with pump tracks and my kids, it's hard to take them off. I mean, even I remember we were on holiday last year in Davos, where they have the dirt pump track, and obviously they close it down when it rains. And we had like a half an hour family fight over why we need to leave now because it's raining, and they still want to keep going. And but yeah, so I have the opposite experience in terms of getting them excited. But maybe one thing to come back to. I mean, what are the main takeaways from your bachelor, or what were the takeaways that kept you going in that direction?
Well, I think the main takeaway was really the access point. That in Cour, the access to the pump track is so easy. Like from all the primary schools, I think the farthest it's away, it's like 3 kilometers. So it's really easy to go there. And what is also really important is that the teachers have some tools to know how to use the pump track, especially if you also have kids who never been on a pump track. So how should they know how to use it? How should they know how to ride on it? So this is something that helps them a lot to have some kind of lesson preparations, for example, and also if ideally some tutorial videos as well. So this is what kept me going, and I think with now where I work at Gorilla, we have this kind of tutorials, we have teachers' preparations, and we have workshops. So it should be an easy thing to do to have this in school.
I have visions of my teachers in primary school. So their average age was maybe around there, maybe between 50 and 55. So I just is there a funny story about some of those workshops where let's say the archetypical primary school teacher has to get on the pump track?
Of course, we do have these funny stories as well. Maybe one of the funniest stories was there is like every 2 years there is a big teachers conference in Macklingen, which is like the biggest sports center in Switzerland, I would say. And there all the sports teachers have a further education, how they can, learn some new tools or games and stuff. And I also did an introduction on the pump track. And so I had many older teachers who were really, really excited about this pump track. And a lot of them tried them or tried to go on the pump track. And it was with your kids, Pascal, so it was really hard to take them off, and so that they were not that punctual to their next meeting. So that was really cool.
Okay, that's great. Bryson, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, I would say that probably out of all of the sports that they put together in that one location, biking would definitely be the funnest one.
For sure.
Definitely. It was actually really fun for me because I was just all day on the pump track, so it wasn't that much hard work for me.
Well, a day on the pump track, that sounds like hard work, but you had a good time.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So yeah, maybe coming back to Gorilla, I mean, my understanding is it's like a foundation, like a publicly funded body, if you will. Can you maybe explain a little bit more what their overall program is? Because that's the first time I really spent a lot of time with it.
Yes, of course. So Gorilla is it's a program from the Schtifti Foundation, and we are a privately owned and funded organization, which is very small. We have 12 employees, I think, and some freelancers as well. And what we do are basically 3 different topics. This is action with freestyle sports, Gorilla Green with sustainability, and Gorilla Food, so healthy food for kids and teenagers. Our main target group is teenagers between 12 and 18. So the ones who are usually not that motivated to try something new, maybe. And also what we have different kind of online content. So stuff like tutorials, how they can do different things, how they can start, for example, breakdancing or cooking or something like that. And also we have lesson preparations for teachers so that they can really go into sports that they might not cover in normal sports lessons. So except for mountain biking, we also have breakdancing, we have skateboarding, we have longboarding, we have freestyle soccer, and many more things. And the third thing that we have are workshops that we offer. So we have passionate instructors who go to schools and go biking, for example, with the children and teenagers, and then they talk also about healthy nutrition and sustainability. And this is really a lot cooler than when your teacher tells you to where to put your pet bottle.
Oh yeah, for sure.
For example.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds exactly like the putting the right tools in front of people and give them the keys to a healthy lifestyle. And so I mean, I guess it's definitely something we should be promoting. So maybe when you talk about getting kids into mountain biking with Gorilla, so what is there maybe like a Gorilla approach? How you bring them into the sport?
I think the main Gorilla approach is through passion. So you really feel the passion of the instructor, because these are all people who are really close to age to the teenagers, and they are just passionate freestyle sports enthusiasts and mountain bikers. So this is something that really fuels, I think, the teenagers to try something. And also we encourage everyone to try something completely new they've never tried before. So they all start on the same level, and they have really fast, great experiences to try something and then get to a level that they've never thought that is possible in one day.
Well, I'm really grateful that Gorilla is offering such an ability to approach this and achieve these things. I know I always feel so great after bike ride, or doing something and achieving something, and it just makes me want to motivate other people and inspire other people. How do people get into Gorilla? Like, aren't these topics and the classes that are taught there something that's normally taught in school for kids at these age group, or is it special for Gorilla?
This is a very good question, because that's really something that is, of course, freestyle sports are always very popular with kids and teenagers, but it's difficult for sports teachers to teach something like, breakdancing if you're not an avid breakdancer. So how do you do that? And this is actually where we step in, and we either bring the people to the schools to go and try this with the teenagers, or we try to give them the lesson plans and also the tutorial videos so that they can work with video tutorials in class, and so that the teenagers can try something by themselves without the teacher as well, and also learn something with the teacher. So this is also kind of fun. And this is actually something that what we want to accomplish is to have sports with a low threshold. So if you are a teenager and you might not like to go and join a club, and you don't like to have trainings every week on Monday evenings with a coach, then you have freestyle sports, which is a lot easier because you can just do it with your friends, you can do it by yourself, you can do it anytime you want. And this is where we want to grab those kids and show them our passions.
So would you also open the possibility of having the equipment ready for these individuals as well?
Yes, so if we do workshops, we bring all the equipment with us. And just for mountain biking, of course, it's harder to have a mountain bike just at the beginning. But we also have sports where you don't need any equipment. So, for example, parkour, you don't need anything for that to just try it. And we also think that you can start mountain biking with your city bike. So you can also do some kind of balance exercises on your city bike, or also even go on a pump track for the first couple of times with your city bike. That works perfectly well. So this is just to get you started, and then we hope that it just goes off after this.
A city bike on a pump track, that sounds like...
You've never tried that?
Actually. But it sounds like a misconception. A lot of people would say, oh, you need a downhill mountain bike to ride a trail. I think there's a lot of misconception out there. Maybe we want to touch on that aspect a little bit. So
maybe what you're saying is that you can't ride an enduro trail without an enduro bike?
Yeah, you need 29-inch wheels, 15-inch millimeter axle.
What if I have an enduro-specific water bottle? Does that count?
500 mil or 750?
Anyway, I mean, I was joking aside. I mean, there's of course, yes, that obviously all sounds very, very positive. But there's, I'm sure there's also, let's say, bit of pushback with freestyle sports, right? Because they're, on the one hand, yes, kids and teenagers, they're very excited about freestyle sports because they're exactly that. They're freestyle. They're generally not many rules. It's a bit, has this cachet of extreme or whatever. So what are is there any pushback from teachers or from parents or from any other institution that maybe doesn't really like that freestyle concept?
Mm-hmm. It's a tough topic because usually if you have like this, normal kind of school, you get maybe to try out soccer and floorball and stuff like that all of us probably had in school as well. And freestyle sports, if some teachers hear that for the very first time, they think like, oh my God, this is too dangerous and I don't know how to do it, and so I won't try that. So this is the biggest pushback first. But the thing is that mostly we have a very good safety concept, and it really helps the teachers to understand, no, you don't have to, be a pro to try it for the first time, or a pump track is maybe a little bit less scary than going down a trail with 20 kids. So you do have like this little kind of concept that help. And we try to give this kind of safety measures to the teachers, and also if we bring our skilled instructors with us, that helps them a lot to just like see that the kids really enjoy it and they don't hurt themselves. So this helps.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I guess I think that's the key to getting everyone on board, including parents, right? Is to demonstrate that again, we've had this discussion on another episode. Is not everything is Rampage, not everything is Downhill World Cup. So there's also like something between, the craziest downhill tracks and just riding your bike to the shops, right? So I think that there's a lot more that can be done in that space in terms of education and kind of portraying the sport in the right way, and of course. There needs to be a balance between the action extreme sports and kind of what the general population does, and kind of through that promote the healthier lifestyle. Because again, as you say, the end goal is to bring kids that don't have access or don't want to have access to let's say more traditional sports towards a more healthy lifestyle.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And also with mountain biking, a lot of people don't realize that it's, as you say, not only Rampage. You have in bike parks as well, you have different kinds of trails. So it's kind of comparable to downhill skiing. And I don't think that in Switzerland you get a lot of people who think downhill skiing is such an extreme sport, because also you have blue trails and red trails and black trails. And this is kind of the same concept in mountain biking. So if you tell people this, that helps as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point that you make. It's some of the people at work that follow me on Strava, they see during the summer, they see like these massive climbing days because I don't bother turning off my GPS on the lifts. And they're like, dang, man, it's like 7,000 meters. This must be a massive day. You must be really, really fit. And it's like, no, I'm, it's mostly lift assisted. And it's like, so what do you take the lifts up, and then what do you do? And I was like, well, it's kind of like alpine skiing. You take the lifts up and you ride down, and there's different trails, different difficulties, and etc. So I think if you frame it in that way, then a lot more people understand that that's not everything is like super hard and super gnarly. There's also flow trails and green trails and panorama trails and stuff like that, right? So that is appropriate for pretty much anyone, right? So another question I have, again, motivated through my own personal challenges, let's say, is the difference between boys and girls, or like the teenagers, a female teenager and a male teenager. Is there any difference how they approach, let's say, action sports or generally, mountain biking?
Well, I think the main perception is that most guys are more like, yeah, this is so cool, let's try this out, yay, we'll do that. And most girls are maybe a little bit more hesitant. And in practice, sometimes this is right, sometimes it's not right at all. Because if you have some really motivated girls, you have like an all-girls mountain bike class where they are ripping the staircases and showing all the boys how it's done. And this is really cool to see as well. Yeah. So you have really all the differences. And I think what you also have is just like the kids or teenagers who are maybe a little bit insecure and not quite sure if they should try it at the beginning. But as soon as they are in there and you can see that they have maybe accomplished something that they've never thought is possible, then they light up and they are really fired up with mountain biking or all the sports that they have tried. So I don't really see main differences in there.
Oh yeah, no. Again, that is the the clearing a challenge. That must be triggering some chemical reaction in a kid's brain. Of being so excited and so thrilled about having overcome this challenge, and see it with my kids when they manage. We were in the mountains, for example, last summer, and we did go mountain biking, and there's a bit trickier section of the trail, and then you stop, you take your time, you look at the feature, you break it down, and look at the lines. Like, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to look at. What you need to look forward, this is how you do it. And then the level of excitement afterwards when they've done it, and they're so excited. And then, you meet friends later on and they're like, do you know what I did? I managed to do this and that, and that was so amazing, and it was so easy. And, this is such a powerful drug in that sense, is that overcoming challenge and managing and giving the kids the tools to do it is so exciting, and helps them push on.
Yeah, and I think this is something that keeps on happening even in like my life or every biker's life, I guess. You always have these challenges ahead of you and you're always scared of something, and then if you overcome this, it's like the greatest feeling on earth. And it's really cool to see if you can get kids into it, that they might get really into mountain biking for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you already mentioned it. You're bringing it to your own life, and obviously another topic or another question I'm really interested in is women in the sport and how they do it, and with your experience from Gorilla and how you approach biking today. So what have you changed anything in terms of your own biking from after the experience with Gorilla, or your bachelor thesis, if you will?
Good question. Maybe I have changed a little bit, but I think it mostly comes a little bit from experience and therefore a little bit confidence. I must admit, I'm actually like a real chicken when it comes to challenges, and I'm scared a lot. But not a lot of people believe me because they see, oh wow, but you ride all this scary stuff and do this and that. But that doesn't matter. I'm always scared. And at the beginning, it was maybe a little bit more because I wasn't really used to how it's working. And also, of course, in bike parks and stuff, you always see all these guys ripping and don't see many female role models, which is a little bit harder to get into it afterwards. But for me, maybe what helped as well was really seeing how the kids are doing it at the workshops, that they really overcome their fears and really help each other. And so this is kind of the approach that I'm having right now as well. So even if I'm scared, I have my tactics how to overcome this fear, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I guess this is very normal, and I think for me it helps to have female role models and also to talk about this kind of fear that I think every mountain biker experiences a lot.
Well, yeah, I think we're starting to go on a very interesting tangent here. I think we want to keep digging here. So, I mean, overcoming fear, again, how do you deal with it? I mean, where does it start? Where's fear starting to become a problem? Where do you need to kind of stop for a second and like think, how am I going to do this? So when I can't do this, where, let's say in air quotes, start breaking down, and where is it just, oh, this looks scary, let's just do it. So how do you deal with all these things, or what are your learnings?
Well, for me, I experienced this kind of fear a lot, and in different kind of situations. I think I have like 3 main situations. Of course, the one that everyone knows probably, especially if you do like a jump the first time, or a drop, or some kind of scary section of a trail, and you kind of stop and don't know how to continue. And also what I personally experience as well is sometimes if I'm asked to join a group and I don't know anyone, then I'm kind of scared, because I think, oh, well, what if I am the slowest one? What if I'm just like stopping them? What if I can't make it down the trail? What if I can't, walk down the trail? Do I need to get a helicopter or something like that? So really my head, it's going off, and the laws of physics do not work in my head. So if it gets really, really scary, it kind of gets crazy in my head. So it is really hard to stop it right then. But for me, what really helps is the people around me. If they are calm and relaxed, I get really calm and relaxed, and as soon as I'm on my bike, I'm a lot more relaxed than when I'm just thinking about all the things that could happen or could not happen. And also for me is really like experience. The confidence comes with experience. If I have jumped a jump that is tiny bit smaller than the one I'm trying to attempt right now, it's a lot easier for me to conquer this bigger jump as well. So this is something that helps me probably to don't go too crazy.
Okay, but I mean, if you let's take a scenario, right? You're riding in a group, and then I'm taking the other side, right? I'm kind of, obviously we've ridden together quite a few times, and sometimes I take stuff for granted. Let's say we've ridden a certain trail a number of times, and you say confidence. I have the confidence to just let the brakes go and it's all fine. And what is let's say a signal for someone that is riding with you, or someone that is scared or has fear issues, to look out for?
Yeah, for me, like a big signal is when I'm riding a trail, I feel a little bit not that confident as like maybe others. I get stressed like very easily. And so if I feel that all the others are kind of always like keen on like moving on as soon as I get there, and I might be the slowest one, but then they are not that keen on waiting and just like thinking, oh yeah, we need to go faster. And the one thing that I had an experience with as well was we were on a trail. I was not the slowest, but we had some people who were there as well who were a little bit slower, or there was like a flat tire, something like that. And then one guy suggested that we should maybe skip lunch because now we're on a schedule and we really need to go on all these fun trails. And I'm just like, this is for me like the biggest no-go ever. Skipping lunch.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster. I'm already kind of out of my depth here, and you want me to go hypoglycemic. So how exactly is that going to work?
Yeah, so that is pretty much the worst idea you could have. Just skipping lunch, skipping breaks. And so if you feel that someone is really like struggling to keep up, and well, I sometimes feel, okay, I don't have time to go to the toilet or something like that, just go for a coffee break. I mean, the trails are not running away, and it really, really helps me or the person who is with you to just like relax a little bit and just feel okay. And actually, me personally, I don't mind waiting for someone, because then you can just like have a laugh with your friends and just continue like talking about weird stuff you just talked about before. Yeah. So this is not a problem. And if you are the slowest one and feel this, that everyone is relaxed and no one minds waiting for you, this helps a ton.
Again, bringing it back to the conversation we had with James about always riding with gummy bears. Pro tip. So if someone's freaking out, wait. First and foremost, wait. Chill out. You take a chill pill first. Then you give the person a gummy bear. Then you talk about it, and then you just continue. That usually works pretty well. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying that you're going to do a backflip after a gummy bear, but I'm sure, like, personally, a true believer in the power of a gummy bear and the relaxing effects of a little sugar rush on just overcoming a blockage and stuff like that. So, and then, again, I use it myself. Not necessarily to overcome fear, but just to help me focus. For example, like for race starts, for example. So yeah, I've started competing in enduros, and obviously there's a couple of starts per day, and I just started using gummy bears in my. Just put one on each side of my cheeks. Shout out to my dentist. Just to get the sugar going, and then to help me focus at the beginning of the race, and not necessarily, as I say, not to overcome fear, but just for focus. And maybe 2-3 years ago, I started riding with gummy bears in my pocket, like literally at all times. Again, it works for the kids, it works for myself, it works for my friends. I mean, power of the gummy bears,
That's right. That's a really good tip. Yeah, I also always have emergency food with me, and sometimes even emergency food. So as soon as you run out of your emergency food, you still have something. So this is very important.
What do you bring with you?
Oh God, this is kind of embarrassing to say, because sometimes I don't even know what I have, because probably some of my granola bars in my backpack have been there for some years. So this is really like the emergency food you really only use for the emergencies.
You really don't care anymore how the food tastes.
No. It's really for those bad moments, but then you can still kind of laugh about this kind of stuff you're just eating right now.
Okay. The primary snack. What's the primary snack?
I think almonds. I really like almonds. They're light to carry. They stay good forever. And yeah, I like almonds.
Power of protein.
I guess. But gummy bears, I should try gummy bears as well. That's a good idea as well.
Okay. Another question on that is from myself is has fear ever stopped you from achieving anything? So like has it ever been in the way of something great?
Well, it's always kind of a little bit in the way, because mostly when I'm very scared, I know that I'm very close to achieving something. But so far, I've managed to overcome this kind of fear. So especially about like obstacles and stuff. So sometimes if I'm very scared of a drop, it takes me a whole day to just think about it, how I'm going to do it. And then I'm really quiet for one day, but the next day I'll do it. And I'm the happiest person in the world, I think. So, so far I've managed to overcome it. But I think it also has helped me a lot. So I understand all the people who are very scared. I understand all the people who feel very, very stressed when they go with better riders, maybe. So I think so far it's made me a better, more understanding rider, and I hope it's gonna keep on doing that.
Yeah, for sure. I think, again, you make a few very, very good points for also before. I mean, the three of us, we've ridden together before on the world famous Biroma weekend, which is a weekend that the shop we all go to organizes once a year, and it's I'd say 25 to 30 riders around Reschenpass, which is a very famous area in the corner between Switzerland, Austria, and Italy. Fantastic riding, but it's always a bit of there's always a faster group, and there's always kind of a middle chill group, and then there's the I take it really easy group, but it always ends up being a big certainly in the faster group it always tends to be a big show off, let's say, and yeah, so I mean I can totally see how that is intimidating, and then sometimes I'm like I'm looking at the dynamic and I'm like, there's no way this is going to end well, and someone is going to end up either hurt or broken egos or something like that, and it's it's just not good. And sometimes it's a good recommendation, as you say, is just to sometimes take a break, have a little snack, enjoy the view, and then just keep going after that.
Exactly. You can still rip the trails afterwards, so they are not really running away from you.
Trails will be there after you, just so you know.
Oh, yeah.
Is this, bringing it back to the women in the sport? Again, one of my key goals here is to educate myself on how I can get my better half into the sport a little bit more. Is this fear dynamic? How does that work in women's groups versus mixed group? Because we already had a very interesting conversation. I'm just very, very curious to have your take on that.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I really enjoy seeing so many more women on the mountain bike. I think in the last couple of years, it has increased a lot, and we see a lot more people, just joining and trying it. And for me, what helps in like girls groups, you usually have very mixed. Not dynamics, but skills. So you are usually like maybe, 4 or 5 women, and they have very different skills. So as a group, you're probably a little bit slower than in a mixed group with men and female. And but actually, I tend to enjoy this as well very much, because I think everyone can learn from each other a lot. And so you get to a very chilled vibe. And sometimes you stop for something that, the kind of beginners want to look at, and sometimes you stop for something that the pros want to look at, and this is all fine. So no one is really in a hurry, and I think in women's group, I've never experienced it that someone said that they want to skip lunch. So this is something I enjoy a lot. This is really the worst idea you could have. So
go team lunch break.
Oh yes, please. And in mixed groups, I experience different kind of things. So sometimes you have a very chilled vibe as well, and it's really, really cool. So I enjoy really riding with you guys, because I know this is all fun and it's all about the laugh as well.
Skids and giggles.
And exactly. But sometimes you do have all just the people who really want, I don't know, to like make the most runs in one day, and I experienced that more with mixed groups. And this is for me something that I don't quite understand, because for me mountain biking is about having fun and not about making the most rides in one day. So I don't know.
It's an interesting dynamic. I used to ride in a lot of mixed groups as well back in North Vancouver. And one thing we did to kind of mitigate this whole misexpectation thing was we clearly stated, what was the plan and which trails we would hit and which, it's more of a loose description, but we would say that, it would be a chilled climb and then a more spirited down. And then we named the exact trails and gave a roundabout estimate of how much time it would take so that people would understand, okay, the pace and things like this. And then they would see specific people who would be in these groups and then understand, I rode with him before on a certain ride and I know his pace and actually we got on well, so I can join that group. So that's, from my experience, that was one of the ways we were able to deal with that.
Yeah, this is, I think, one of the easiest access points to go into such a group, that you don't know anyone, and if you have all this information, that helps a lot for me, or personally. And also one thing that I wanted to mention was very interesting experience how the perception of mountain biking women sometimes is a little bit off, I think. I was with a good girlfriend of mine. We went surfing to Portugal, but also we wanted to go mountain biking because we are both avid mountain bikers. And we wanted to go, well, we did have our bikes with us, so we went through a mountain bike company. And we wanted to go for a shuttle day on a downhill biking hill, sort of. And so it's not something very odd, because they actually have this in their kind of menu you can choose from. But actually we got a mail back from them, well, all male guides, and two girls wanted to go downhill biking, and so we got a mail back that if we're really sure if we want to do that, because like the trails in Portugal are a lot harder than the alpine trails in Switzerland, if we're really sure about that.
Sure.
And so it took us a while really to think about that, because then we thought, okay, so how what are these trails like? How do they look like if they're really that much harder? So the one thing we could think of was Rampage, and we could just not really imagine that these trails were like Rampage. So therefore, we kind of overcame our fear that these trails are too hard for us. And so we went on this day, and it was actually really fun. It was raining all day. The bikes were kind of okay. But we had a blast with the two guides, and at the end of the day they recommended us all the really hardcore downhill bike places in Portugal. But for me it was really hard to say, no, I think we are actually good enough, and I think we actually have ridden harder alpine trails than in Portugal.
There you go. That's a positive overcoming fear story, I would say.
Yeah, so sometimes this perception of female mountain bikers might be a little bit off, but in hindsight, I must say that I totally understand these guys now. I've been on a different kind of tour with them as well, more a kind of panoramic tour with tourists. And there you actually had people saying that they were like the best mountain bikers on earth, but they could barely like put their feet on the pedals. So therefore, I really understand their warnings as well. But in this moment for us, it was kind of hard to think of the really hard Portuguese trails we are not able to ride.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, my undergrad statistics class, when the statistics professor was asking, like, everyone raise their hands that thinks they're better than the average. And of course, 90% of the class raise their hands. So of course, if you're going to ask someone, do you think you're an above average rider? I mean, the likelihood is pretty high that he's going to say yes. So I think, yeah, again, that happens a lot. And, speaking of the what you said earlier about the group dynamics and fear, and I think the other perspective to the group dynamic is, of course, the unknown of you riding in a group where you don't know the people, but not necessarily because you think they have high expectations, but you don't know their level. You don't know how fast they can go, how they feel. If someone hasn't ridden in the Alpine yet, right? So I mean, that is something you need to experience first, because you can if someone is not confident in moving around the mountainside when things start going pear-shaped, then then that's not something I personally want to be around. So generally, when I go ride, relatively exposed backcountry stuff or exposed Alpine stuff, then I really, really make sure that I know the people that I'm with, and they know how they need to move around the mountain. They know where they need to go when stuff goes wrong, who they need to call, what they need to do, etc. So again, that's bringing it back to what Bryson said earlier. Again, what is very important in these groups, especially when you don't know people 100%, is, of course, communication, laying out a plan and making sure that everyone knows what's coming up, what we're trying to do, where you're going to meet for lunch, because lunch is important. Hopefully where you're going to meet for Kaiserschmarrn in the afternoon, especially when we were back at the Eschenpass, and where we meet for the afternoon beer. So, make a plan and stick to it and make sure that everyone knows what's up.
Yes, I think this really helps especially when you start with something like mountain biking and you're kind of insecure about your abilities and the other group's abilities. These kind of meeting points really help. And also when you don't know if you're good enough, then okay, then I can still go for a coffee and this is all fine. I think if you have this established, this helps a lot, especially for the ones who are a little bit more stressed about situations like this.
Maybe another question, if I may, is obviously, taking your different experiences with Gorilla, with, overcoming fear. You've mountain bike company, not very successful, as we have learned. But, maybe also, how does it, in your experience, how does it differ to bring women that are obviously generally already a little bit older into the sport versus, your experience with Gorilla and, obviously more teenagers, young teenagers, etc. How does that differ?
Well, for me, in my experience, it is that the older you get, the more careful you get a little bit. So you don't just jump into something and just try it just to try it. Usually you are a little bit careful and you want to test the waters maybe a little bit, and you are more thinking about consequences if something goes
you
wrong.
Don't want to show up at work with it bleeding through your shirt.
Maybe not, or not on Mondays. Exactly. So this is something that I have learned, that there is this slight difference, that the older you get, the more careful you get, and the more explanation you want to have and you also want to understand how your bike works, how things work, and you want to have different kind of techniques how to overcome obstacles and also to overcome your fears. And this kind of mental game, I think this goes on a lot more the older you get. So this is maybe the main difference, that you really explicitly explain how your bike works and also what you can do in your mind to help you riding.
Maybe I should book you for a lesson for my better half.
Maybe that's a good idea, because that's also something I have experienced, that it's seldom a very good idea to start riding with your partner.
Yeah, we had that before. Although, I mean, yeah. It's a difficult, a loaded question, so to speak.
It is. Well, I would say you can start, but you just need to be aware that there are quite different kind of expectations around. And if your partner is an avid mountain biker, probably the question he or she will ask you is like, so how awesome was it? And this is not really helping if you're still in this kind of panic zone.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that's what the whole discussion about, something like that's already a very experienced rider, does things almost by instinct, most of the time doesn't even think about what he's doing. And then a beginner asks him, is like, well, how am I doing this? And then you just, you do off the cuff remark and say like, oh yeah, just do this, and this, and it's going to be fine. And, they can't rationalize it. So how exactly have you helped them?
Yeah, and then usually the mind game starts, especially if you tell them things like, yeah, just go straight, or just don't break. Things like that never, ever help, just to be clear.
Though I must say, I'm obviously not all bad. The biggest difference that I have made to the riding of my better half was getting her a bike with a dropper post. That made a world of a difference.
Cool.
2-3 years ago. So.
Well, I think also this is something that really helps is the bike setup and the kind of bike you're starting with. If this is really, the setup is right for you, it helps you a ton. And also if you have a good bike, you can trust your bike to go over things that you might not be that sure about. And your bike can do more than you think. And this is really something that helps you in the beginning.
Speaking about bike setup, anything particular that you like to have done with your bike, or maybe you want to do by yourself to make sure it's done right?
So I must admit I'm a very lazy mechanic. So I always just do the things that I really need to do. And but I am very particular with my tires, actually. I like my tires, and usually I'm not that happy with other bike tires because I think, oh no, now it's really slippery. Now I don't feel my bike. So this is something I'm very particular about, I think.
Or perhaps this is a new topic for overcoming fear. Maybe you have a fear of different treads?
Maybe. Maybe I have, but I haven't really overcome this kind of fear just yet.
Jumping back to the topic about being inspired and having someone to train with or to kind of learn from, I was interested to, or I am interested to hear, who do you look up to in terms of like, kind of a bike inspiration, or maybe just, male or female? Maybe you can give us a couple examples if you have a couple.
Oh yeah, that's, I think, the easiest question of today. Because for sure that's Rachel Atherton. And well, who else? And for me, like, the most inspiring thing is that she's also talking about the downsides, the injuries, the hard stuff of biking, and also that you see, well, sometimes she's scared as well. Sometimes she has a difficult time to motivate herself. Sometimes, things go wrong as well. And I think this is something that helps me as well to see, okay, so maybe even if I'm scared of this right now, it's okay. Other people have this problem as well. And I must admit, if I'm very, very scared and I need to try something for the first time, sometimes in my mind I pretend to be Rachel Atherton, because then I know, okay, now I can do it.
What would Rachel Atherton do?
Exactly. So now I'm Rachel, I can do it.
How about a quick one? Do you prefer big productions like from Red Bull, or do you prefer these homemade POV YouTube shredits? Which ones do you watch? You find yourself watching more out of guilty pleasure?
Ooh, okay, that's a more difficult one. I think I mostly watch big productions, but mainly because I don't really know the small things. So maybe you will have some tips for me, Bryson, for small, cool productions.
Oh, yeah, I could think of a couple. Actually, I got another one right now. I ran into you randomly when we were at Flumserberg at coincidentally the same time. We did a couple laps together. I just happened to be there by luck or bad chance, basically. But I'm curious to know how you decide on the different regions or the different trails that you go and explore.
Yeah, so it depends really on who I'm with and how much time I have. Usually, if I know the people I'm going with are maybe more beginner bikers, then a region where there are also really cool flow trails around, like Flumserberg, for example, are very, very cool. And sometimes if I have more time and more explorative, I go a little bit further and somewhere, where they have really cool enduro trails, like in the Wallis region. There is just lots and lots of really cool trails. And it also a little bit depends on how much I want to pedal up, because sometimes I'm very lazy and then I just want to have my lift access, and then I just go to a place that has lift accesses.
And what's your favorite spot in Switzerland? I mean, this is a podcast about riding in Switzerland, so we always try to have a view on the favorite secret spot, so to speak, or not so secret.
Ooh. Well, probably just off the top of my mind, it's probably Lenzerheide, because I really, really like the bike park there. They have very cool stuff that you can just step by step improve yourself. And also they have really cool enduro trails, and the view is fantastic. But usually the thing is that every trail I'm riding right now is my favorite trail, and the conditions as well. So if I'm riding in the mud, this is my favorite condition, and then if I'm riding in the dry, this is my favorite condition as well. So I'm a little bit indecisive on this.
All right, maybe before we close out the show, I mean, we're getting towards the end of our time, maybe clear up the big secret. What is your favorite tire?
Oh, okay. So that's the Continental, the Baron and Kaiser.
What?
I'm so sorry, guys. I know a lot of people don't understand that.
It is a great tire. It is a great tire. I did use it myself.
Yeah. It just works for me really well.
Okay. Well, we are at the end of our time, and we have a couple of questions that we like to ask all of our guests. And is that okay for you?
Of course.
Maybe start with the first one. I think we already got a little glimpse into what the answer is going to be. So maybe you could tell us just a little bit again what about the bike that really got you stoked about riding.
So I think that's my Santa Cruz Blur. And I got it as a test bike. And actually how I got it, I wrote an email to Santa Cruz, Switzerland, saying that I'm a poor student, but I really, really like their bikes if they have any test bikes around to give out. And they actually wrote back, we're this guy, he's coming for a fishing trip to Kur in the next week or so, and he can just load up one of these bikes in his minivan, and the keys are on the front tire, so if I want to test it, I should just get it there. And that's how I got my first bike, and I actually paid for it, so I was good.
That is crazy. That is a crazy story. That is a good story. That is a good story. Do you know where the bike is today?
Yes, I sold it to a teenage boy. I think, I rode it for 5 years, so I rode it for quite some time. And then I just had it on trail level, so kind of the local bike second-hand page. And a teenage boy, he bought it, and usually the unwritten rule there is that you always bargain for the price. And I had it there for 900, and he wanted to give me the 900, and I'm a very bad saleswoman, so I bargained with myself, so I gave it for him to live for like 800 or something, because I said, no, you can't do that. You need to bargain.
Exactly. Again, another pro tip: if you're selling bikes on secondhand forums like Trail Devils or Pink Bike or wherever, always start at the top. You can always negotiate down.
Yes, or I do it for you.
Exactly, or just ask Lucy.
Yeah.
All right. Second one is a bit out there. It's a bit out there. So imagine you are Harriet Skidini, and you're a bike magician extraordinaire, and you can make riding a bike more awesome for anyone by the stroke of your magic dropper post. What would you do?
I think more confidence for women to bike ride and to go in bike parks. That would be something cool, because I want more women in bike parks.
That's a great one. Actually, we'd all like to see that. Now, we have our third question, and it's not an easy one. It's actually, some might say it's the hardest of the three. Others say it comes from the depths of hell. But I'll just ask it to you plain. Actually, you know what? No. So we've ridden together, and I have noted your style. I have you on some GoPro footage as well, and you're quite a calculated and smooth rider, I would say, and you carry speed very well. However, if you had to be really like the devil, how would you flatten a berm? How would you raise some earth, per se? What makes a great skid?
Oh, wow. This is really a hard question. Well, on berms, I always prefer the inside line to like just really skid into the berm. And so I'm very sorry to just sometimes destroy this berm a little bit. So if I'm very fast, but this doesn't happen that often. So, and on a bike ride from hell, I would just take the inside line, destroy this berm, and just skip down this trail.
Sending it for the trail crew.
Yeah.
That's why the berms are there. Prove me wrong.
Well, Lucy, thanks again for doing this. If listeners have any questions or want to learn more about you and your work and what you do, where can they find out more?
Well, you can either look me up on the Gorilla webpage. It's actually Schtifti Foundation.ch. Or you can look me up on Instagram, and I think you guys can put that up in the comments.
Sure, we'll do that. Well, thanks again. This was awesome, and I think there are some great takeaways. And so, yeah, well, we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Ciao. Keep shredding.
It was awesome.